Right, hello, welcome back. This is episode 14 of the Milner Field House History and Discovery podcast. And tonight we're on light staffing. It's Chrissie and myself. Hopefully Andy will be joining us in a little bit before he heads out to the beer festival. We'll see. So how are you doing, Chrissie?
I'm good, thank you, Mr. Bottomley.
Good stuff. It's been a couple of weeks since we last had a podcast. Just a few points and refreshers to remind people of, and for anybody that's not watched before, just to let them know how you can get in touch with us. So first of all, we are on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and quite a few podcasting and video casting sites, including YouTube. So it's a Milner Field House History and Discovery podcast. So if you search for that, the main group is Milner Field History and Discovery on Facebook and the Milner Field page. For other information, you can contact us directly by message or by email if you're not so keen on social media at milnerfieldhouse at milnerfieldhousepm@pm.me. I'll say it again. milnerfieldhousepm. No, I've got lost. Anyway, milnerfieldhouse@pm.me. That's it. And then you can
go.
yeah. So yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks, and I think things have stepped up a little bit. I know, Chrissie, you've done a hell of a lot of work, and whilst I've been out injured and things, and Cherie and Sharon and Kat have also come along to help, haven't they? You want to tell us, start telling us about the Orangerie and the windows and things as well?
Yeah, it was actually something that I've gone back to way back last year, before any of us had got together. That was my first attempt, should we say, with a trowel, and I didn't really know as much then as I know now in terms of soil removal and how to move things. So I kind of gave up, and kind of moved on. But yeah, it's been, I suppose you can call it, my first love of the house. It's something that I noticed immediately right from the off was the door frame, the stone part of the stone door casing on the left side poking out above the soil level. Not much of it, but enough to know that it was a door. And obviously looking at the floor plans, I knew exactly where I was. So yeah, I just kind of went back. I had an idea placed in my head, and I thought, right, okay, I'm going to have another attempt. And I spent a whole day there myself, with no interruptions really, apart from a few passerbys, just digging out. And I got quite far down as well, which really pleased me. And then I think 2 days later, I think Cherie and Thomas joined me, and we made great headway that day. We got all the way down to the to floor level, basically. Exposed some of the details that none of us knew existed. Some of the stonework, how it had been carved at the very bottom. Pulled out a hell of a lot of pieces that would have formed the archway above the door. And obviously found quite a lot of symbols on certain parts of that doorway, which are visible on our Facebook group. And yeah, we'd done that, and we got to a point where we couldn't really go any further. I mean, we made great attempts to move some of these huge pieces, and we actually did move them. Incidentally, one of them that looked like it would be really, really heavy was actually not as dense as some of the other pieces of stone, and we actually managed to move it quite easily, which is quite remarkable. It was that straight lintel that was in front of the doorway. We moved that about 3 times. So and then I think a few days later, I think we'd started excavating sort of down the left side, very corner of the doorway, where we found some of the remaining wall between the orangerie and the billiard room. and we'd found quite a lot of glass, leaded glass and tile, and yeah, various different little, you know, artifacts. It's quite a lot of intact squares of glass, and a few pieces that look like they should be round. You know, and then a couple more that were sort of star-shaped, or almost star-shaped anyway. Yeah, basically managed, and they were completely intact, like unbroken, some of them. And you know, me being me, was studying pictures in the book, and managed to identify, you know, as one of the windows from between the Orangerie and the billiard room, one of the lead glass windows, which was quite remarkable, really. And then we proceeded to sort of dig that left-hand side planter all the way down the Orangerie, and obviously we found a hell of a lot more glass, and you know, it was at a level as well under the rubble and soil that I like to call pre-demolition, because it was, you know, this is my reckoning on how things went down back before the house was actually demolished, because of all the roof slate. Obviously the roofs were the first things to be removed from the house, and under all the slate was glass, and, you know, clearly pieces of these windows that used to be, you know, big huge arch windows, all lead glass. So you know, whether I'm right or wrong, they were either vandalized or knocked out before the roofs were taken off. So, you know, it's kind of like a guessing game, really, but the evidence is there. So, you know, anyway, so we've got to a point now where we've gone literally both sides of the Orangerie, and we've moved stones, some of the carved pieces. We've managed to place them so people can admire them. The doorways completely visible on both sides, what remaining portions of them. You know, and it looks a hell of a lot tidier than it ever has. Probably since the day it was demolished.
It definitely does, yeah, and especially last few days as well. Yeah, I've noticed as well from the couple of days I've had over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, specifically, it's remarkable how much of that doorway, up to a certain point where it disappears naturally, where it was knocked down, how much of that still remains, and how beautifully intact it is, and how strong it is.
Yeah, I mean, even the part, even the very top portion of the left side that was exposed, it's still perfectly preserved. So, you know, it's not been weathered or damaged, or you know, because it's solid stone that's been, you know, delicately carved. Yeah, so it's absolutely amazing that that stuff's still there, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, and I've gone for the last few years at that point, that top brick of the left side, as you looking to it from the west inwards, that was like my favorite place to sit for a good few years. Sit, nice spot you could look down. I never thought you'd end up
yeah, exposed completely. I know. Yeah, sorry, I completely got rid of that seat for you now, because you can't.
I still sit up there, but
you probably could, but I don't think I could reach it now.
Yeah, no, but
quite a bit higher than the other side, the right side. But yeah, it was just exciting, and you know, it deserves to be seen. I mean, it's like the rest of the portions that we've managed to uncover. Again, it just goes to show that the house still exists. You know, years ago, you'd look at it and you really thought there was nothing left. You know, it was kind of mounds that were very sort of tantalizing, and you kind of knew really, but you didn't know what. And, you know, now we know it's, you know, there's a lot more than we ever thought there was be left. It's all still there.
Of course, and the scale of it from the old photos is hard to gauge, but when you see it in real life now, as it is today, it's very apparent, the actual scale of things. And yeah, obviously you can still sit on that point, but legs will dangle down there, whereas before they were just sat in 11 rubble as well. And yeah, I know from joining in there that there was just all those beds along were full of like all kinds of minor fragments of artifacts, such as cord from pulleys for sealing and orangery roof windows, iron rods and mechanisms and all kinds of stuff, cable. But the tiles were the main thing. I think garage tiles that were just so really well intact, apart from being broken apart, but on the surface, the glaze and the colour is very well intact for most of them.
Well, I thought it was quite interesting how most of them were face down as well. So, you know, they were obviously just when they pulled the wall, you know, they either pulled the wall forward or it was pushed. You know, these tiles just landed in the beds. It's
yes, it's odd. And then there's all the little runoffs around the for whatever was for moisture to run down, or for whatever the heating and drainage system was beneath the orangery and the palm. There must have been something there, and again, we'll get to the potting shed in a little bit, like on the potting shed where the billiard room fireplace was. But I've maintained all along that there must be some kind of underground heating system and steam pipes under there that carried heat and moisture into those areas for, what was that, propagation of like plants, palms, orchids, anything else. Because the entire Salt family, they were all into that, weren't they?
Yeah, of course. And he Titus Jr. designed that heating system himself. So, you know, he was a very clever man and he knew what he was doing. But yeah, I think you might have something there, because there had to be some perhaps under the billiard room and the turning room. And you know, the orangerie itself was perhaps a heating chamber, maybe, because obviously we've seen the pipes.
I reckon so, yeah.
It must have been, because it would have been in that location, wouldn't it? It wouldn't have been, you know, further down the bottom end of a house or anything.
No, it would have made sense to have it right there.
So finding a chimney stack that actually is you know, goes beyond ground level. I mean, that's not the first one we found, but we kind of know why the one down by the kitchens is because there was a servant's hall down there. But this end, you would not have expected to find a stack that goes below ground level. So yeah, I think.
And in our like pre-show discussion, I told you a little bit about Fennyhurst and so on, and what Edward Salt had done there, and the layout of Fennyhurst and Knoll were very similar in terms of like the sociology of the rooms and the things, the kitchens, the farm, everything.
Yeah.
Each of the three houses was built and designed differently. They still had these same principles of what was used, such as underground heating and furnaces to you know, transport. And of course, Edward Salt in Fennyhurst, he said he was a lover and grower of orchids and different exotic plants as well.
Yeah.
So they must have shared the knowledge. They must have shared around. And obviously,
well, will have done. They were brothers. I mean, they would have spoken to each other quite frequently. So
you know, I said he. Well, I said I did this. You know, be like, all right, I'll get on to Robert Harris and we'll, you know, Thomas Harris, and we'll sort it out. So yeah, they must have shared the plans and just kind of, well, you know, what's the thing of the day? What's the best way to do it? And I guess just because we don't see that anymore in modern construction, we don't see these things anymore.
Yeah.
In my mind, in that era, they were a lot more advanced than we are now.
Yeah.
They didn't have the internet, or they didn't have other technologies that we have, but they were more advanced in some ways, I think.
Yeah, they were definitely more I can't say it, innovative.
more crafty and creative, yeah.
There you go.
Absolutely. So yeah, I recall going along those beds as well and digging out a lot of dead roots and just really struggling with the stuff in there. And I just skimmed off the top, kind of half foot or something, and left you to do the trowel along the bottom. By the time we got to the end, and then you pulled various stones out and put them back, but the whole of the orangery has just been totally revitalized and cleaned, hasn't it?
It's been transformed. I mean, if you think back to early last summer, it was that nature had just you couldn't see the edging to the beds. You just couldn't see it. The soil level was so high from all these decades of soil production from the trees above. Like you said, the potting shed, that you couldn't even really make out. You could just make out just that something had been there. And obviously we have the floor plans to tell us exactly what that was. but the ivy was starting to grow completely over. It was just completely out of control, and there were stones that were just slippage, falling over. Some of the larger ones were a bit, I don't know, they weren't very sound, were they?
No, no. And I remember going back, if I go back years and years ago, going back to like 2008, 9, 10, 11, and so on then, and that whole thing was just totally overgrown with like ferns and bushes and grass, just weeds, and it just looked like, it's been totally reclaimed. But thinking back now and making that comparison in my mind, look back now and see what's like, wow, you can actually see the whole house, the building emerging like, it's like Phoenix from the flames, isn't it?
It is, it really is. And it's in my mind, it's spectacular because I can almost not transport myself back in time, obviously, but I can see now. Whereas before you kind of struggled, you had to really use your imagination. But now you look from a farmhouse all the way down your Orangerie to the doorway, you can actually imagine how it would have looked like, it's
I know it. The thing that I love most about what they did with the mansion to build it was like the entranceways, the doorways were grand and they were beautiful, and they were just so everything about them was solid. And we were talking about, we found obviously what I call the front door, the south facing door. The back of the porch is completely gone. That entrance is completely gone. But the gentleman's entrance, orangery doorway entrance, and the luggage, even the luggage steps entrance was just bigger than most. Totally. I mean, that piece of stone across the floor, the luggage entrance steps, I think is the biggest flag sandstone I've seen in the entire site.
Like I was explaining to people, it had to be, because back then it was proper steamer trunks. It wasn't your average suitcase that would have gone through that doorway.
There was no Louis Vuitton in those days, darling.
Actually, no, there was. Louis Vuitton was 1854, so.
Well, not Milner Field though, unless
really royalty. I bet Titus had.
I don't know. Maybe Catherine had some Gucci bags. I don't know. I don't know.
Gucci wasn't around then, but Louis Vuitton definitely was. So
I know that.
Yeah.
So there was also because you got really stuck in and moved a lot of stones, and you showed me some symbols. There were some hexagrams, but there were uneven ones. And for anybody that doesn't know, a hexagram is a 6-pointed star, but like offset, so it wasn't symmetrical like a Star of David or anything.
Yeah. I mean, oh my God, I gave a screech when I found that first one. I was like, at first I thought it was a Star of David, and I was like, what? Andrew thought another spider had crawled onto my hand, but it was, I was just like, I really let out a screech because I'd never seen that symbol there before. Never.
It was pretty well, and then 2 or 3 turn up, and then the other one, which is because everything that I've seen, like all the esoteric symbols, that hexagram, which goes in with the alchemical symbols, and then the one that looks a bit like a crazy pine tree, like diamonds in it. I mean, that's a Kabbalah. The Kabbalah coming from the runic tree of life for Yggdrasil in Nordic mythology. So he's linked everything together. You've got the runes, the Greek symbols, alchemical symbols, planetary symbols, and that. He had a fantastic grasp of the esoteric, Salt Jr. And I constantly maintain that he specifically had these carved on purpose.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. They're on specific stones in specific areas. It's not an accident. There's too many of them. I mean, I was quite skeptical when I first met you and you started showing all these. I was a little bit like, but quite honestly, I've moved enough of them now and seen enough of them, and so many different ones. And like we both said, they're on specific areas, entrances, windows.
His library, orangery to his plants, where he grew his plants, his office. Main areas, right? So he was protecting what he wanted most of all. I mean, the kitchens and stuff like that. There's odd 1 or 2, 3 there, but literally he was using these symbols specifically in areas that he wanted to protect most of all. For whatever reason.
Yeah.
Just
But just the far, far. I mean, going back to when people have gone, oh, the Mason's marks. Well, I'm sorry, but they're not. I'm not an expert, but even I know they're not. They're far too intricately carved. They would have taken far too much time. The guy would have been chipping away for hours, let alone, getting paid for actually putting his name on stone. And we both know that half of these huge pieces have got no marks on at all.
Actually,
So
probably about 90% have got nothing on.
exactly. So surely, if it were Mason's mark, they'd be on every single stone.
Yeah. And of course, I think we found, I think in my mind, there's over 100 different symbols.
Yeah.
So that would mean over 100 masons only put marks on about 5% or so of the stones, or up to 10% of the stones, but didn't bother with the rest.
So basically, they wouldn't have got paid for half the work.
No, it's just it's a oxymoron. It's kind of a kind of
Yeah, but it just goes. It
no-brainer.
goes. Well, it goes down to experience. We've spent so much time there. I mean, so much time. The only way you're going to learn about something is spending time with it.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you can get so much off of Google, and Google will tell you this and tell you that and so on. But yeah,
No. When you spend your time there with your hands in the dirt, moving things and looking at things and finding things, that's how you learn. That's how history is created. It's all a intricate game of chess, basically.
it's the energy of the place as well. You can tell by spending time there of what's what as well.
Yeah.
Some people just turn up and kind of get what they want and leave, and that's that. That's it's their thing. But I think when you kind of as committed as we are, we spend hours and days and there, months on end. We spend that time there.
Yeah.
I think you have to spend a bit of time there to get it, really, don't you?
You have to spend a little bit more than just a few hours. Yeah,
Yeah,
you really do. You have to return over and over again. I
yeah.
mean, like I've said to you before, and I've said to everyone else, it's something that well, I know what it is, but I won't say, but something there captured me. It was kind of like, it got hold of me, and it wouldn't let me, it let me leave, but it wanted me back. So, I've been at this now. We'll be coming up to a year this summer that I've been,
Yeah.
and obviously yourself, you've been there for various amounts of time over the years. So it's
Practically there most of the time, especially in summer.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it's important. Yeah, people are. I mean, people do just visit, the odd time and so on. And there's more and more visitors these days. We're always welcome to see people. We're happy to see people as well.
yeah,
And I think it's gone from just the occasional weekend visits to kind of every day of the week now. So as popularity's gained, it's important to point people to the Facebook group, Milner Field History and Discovery Group, and to ask them to read the pin post, which is from Bingley Town Council. I'll mention this again. I mentioned it last time, which is just to make you aware that the process is already in place. All of the questions that you have as people that haven't found this place before, and they're just asking things like, kind of what's happening with the site, who owns it, and so on as well. All of that's covered in the FAQs and the pin post from the council. Everything else, if you ask in the groups, we'll redirect you to those, because they're being asked again and again and again.
yeah.
We'll always direct you back to those. And then if you have any further questions, just feel free to message us or contact us or post for us as well. So hopefully, things are in the pipeline to make sure that there's some resolution between the owner of the land and the council and the people.
Yeah.
More or less, is to find some happy compromise. And a good compromise is something that nobody's happy with, essentially, but everybody's comfortable with, that they can do. So it would be good that, it could be made into some type of country park, or maybe a visit centre, or just as a, working thing with a farm, without disrupting local neighbourhood and residents as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is.
One day.
It is practically that already, isn't it? People enjoy walks through there, and but even before we started, it was always a place people like to just walk the dogs, and maybe come to reflect, but even more so now, there's something to actually come and look at as well as a point of interest. So it's no longer a site where somebody perhaps thought there was a mansion, because let's face it, the odd visitor that would happen along the place, you really didn't have much to look at by a rubble dump. So
of course,
an overgrown rubble dump, and you really didn't know where the house we were all surprised when we found the gentleman's entrance and the wall in front of the office, because the house was further back than you imagined in the courtyard, because of the rubble that had slid down and the way that the soil had,
I think you couldn't quite tell where the ground level floor level of the house was, and it seemed like big mounds of rubble. It seems like it could have been destroyed right down to the ground level and then piled. But once you realised how, because the whole valley side goes all the way down to the river to Seven Arches, you've got the upper platforms of the farm, then you've got the walled kitchen gardens, then you've got where the plateau where the old house is, then you've got where the new Milner Field House is, then you've got farmlands, and that slopes down to the lower farmlands. So you've got potentially 5 or 6 different kind of plateaus down that have all been dug out. So you can really gauge where the ground level was. But once, you got digging, as you say, Chrissie, you could see where, well, actually, this is the ground level, walk-in level. But I think the way that I always gauged it was, well, that's where the archway is and the ground is there. So that must be the ground level. There must be a way in. And then you have a big bulldozer path through the house, and it's like, well, actually, you could tell you couldn't see any of the walls or the vents or the door.
Well, if you think about soil production over the decades as well, I mean, the whole courtyard must have risen by, I wouldn't even dare.
For some at least.
Yeah.
And with everything else piled on top, and just pure neglect, just pure like chaos, really.
But it's starting to make sense now as well. But obviously now we've begun the process of clearing up, tidying away loose rubble. David and his wheelbarrow.
I'll be doing that for until it takes, and we go like right around the house, and then just everything that obviously previously has been cast out from the rubble pile and gone over with the red bricks and the filler sandstone and the stone as well. We'll leave all the key stones and important.
I mean, they could perhaps they could be placed where we found them in the vicinity. For people to look at. I think that would be quite nice.
We'll do that as well, but for now it's like places got things out of sight whereby it's not only safer but more kind of attractive for people visiting there, where they don't
absolutely, because that's the biggest bugbear for me is what we've created in a way. It's kind of I mean, the place has never looked appealing anyway, I have to say, since they probably knocked it down, but now I do have a conscience, and
well, like I say, I'll get on with that because I don't mind tidying up. So we'll carry on with that, and then as it becomes clearer and clearer, the full outline of the house will be we'll have like a pathway around all the way around, and then the kitchen area, and then later on the stables and so on. But I just want to give a special shout out to, although he's not joined us tonight, Mr. Ace McAllister, for what he did for the old steps to the old Milner Field House. And I was just like,
did a great job, hasn't he? He really has.
He just he got his little broom out and he's shoved, and he just
he's cleared all the soil off, and the ivy, and he's just revealed these 16th century, probably even earlier than 16th century steps. And they're so well preserved as well. I mean, they're just beautiful.
Apart from a few little chips, but they're absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, they are.
So it's amazing that you're just covered over in mud and so on. So I mean, I guess way into the future, then we'll get onto that top plateau at some point if nobody objects. But we'll have to see what happens in between.
Yeah.
Just Shout out to Andy because he's not well. Not I don't think he's joining us tonight.
No, bless him.
And
Naughty boy.
no. Well, it's and just a shout out to Alan as well, Alan Taylor. Hopefully he's all right. He's just obviously been a bit under the weather, I think. So send a shout out to Alan, and if you're watching, listen to this, mate, hope you're fit and fighting fit soon as well. I'll hope to see you back at Milner Field soon. Right, so Orangerie and doorway, which led you then, I think, was it? Well, mostly yesterday. It was only yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yesterday, right back into the potting shed and along that wall, the outer west-facing wall of the billiard room. So yeah, tell us what you know about that, please, Chrissie.
Well, I just kind of, as you know, yesterday I kind of dealt with that little sort of heap on the right-hand side of the orangery doorway, moved those stones down, tidied it up a bit, because they were the ones that we had to pull down before we left, so they weren't dangerous.
That was when you were taking up, yeah. So
so I went back to the potting shed where I'd done a bit of digging originally, where we'd found the tiled entrance doorway, and obviously removed all the stones which are sort of shading the tiles that are there, kind of protecting them. Gave it a good sweep down, and then we started doing some more sort of investigations into the potting shed, because as we know, there was actually a Crossley engine in there that powered the electrics at one point. I presume that was a Salt era. But we just kind of, I just wanted to have a peek really, because I knew really roughly there was more in there than what I'd found initially. I think it had got a little bit difficult, to be honest with you, back then. So I'd kind of left behind what I'd started. I'd found the entrance. That was enough for now. But we found actually remaining dressed stone at the very bottom, that goes both sides. Unfortunately, there's a whacking great bit, a huge tree that has grown on the remaining section of floor, because the potting shed went it was quite a deep potting shed, wasn't it? It wasn't a very wide one, but it was quite a long one. And we got so far, found both sides of the remaining dressed stone. And then I don't know who was it that, it wasn't me because I was still in the potting shed, but who was it who found the fireplace in the billiard room?
That was me.
Was that you?
It was, because I knew what was on top of it and I moved it.
Not believe that. You found the very bottom of Titus Jr.'s fireplace in the bit, and I always wondered what happened to it and where it was. And
that stone, the tile, the bits I picked out, because I know you'd found pieces previously, and I found a piece.
Yes, that we thought was marble, but
it's either some type of conglomerate or breccia stone, which is people watching home. It's like marble tends to have like an iridescent or like sparkly quality to it when you cut it open when it's fractured. But these other stones, it was like a deep red, like a light maroon color with dark veins and spots through it. So it could be a conglomerate, which means like different stones together, different bits, where you get like 2 or 3 things in one, like a composite. So yeah, because it wasn't as highly polished, it was quite dull looking.
In all fairness, it would be. It's been open to the elements for decades before it was covered in soil. So it could have been damaged by water.
Dull is in the fact that if you break it open, it's dull as well. So
right, okay, I get you.
Like with marble, you get like iridescence because it's tiny fractures of quartz inside it, which kind of catches
shimmer.
The shimmer. It shimmers with light. So whatever it is, I'll have to look further into it. But it's
this one. It almost looks like it's got iron deposits in it. It's
the red would be iron generally.
Okay.
Different mineral would give the colours. So I don't know if it'd be interesting to get some advice off somebody that knows a bit more, but we'll keep looking for information. So it was just nice to find it all there, and like, wow.
Yeah, the whole half. And it's all sooty in the middle as well, where you could see where there's been fire.
History leaves its marks and time, and it just leaves a residue and everything, doesn't it? So but at the back of there as well, into the potting shed, I've remarked before that there may be some type of dual furnace or something going down that would send heat through the pipes into the orangery and into the farmhouse in order to heat it and to keep it, kind of, humid as well. And I think there seemed to be a bit of evidence for that, didn't there? Because Andy had his hand down the hole for quite a while.
Yeah, he was pulling out red brick, wasn't he? That had obviously fallen in, but it's a very, very large oval chimney flue. And it goes all the way down to clearly what is basement, because we all had a feeling there was basement under there. We've seen evidence in places. And yeah, that would substantiate it. And it's a very different flue to what I've seen. It's got very sort of intricate holes that were clearly for something cut out into the flue. So yeah, yeah, very interesting, I have to say, and very much intact below, well, above floor level as well. It's that was a crazy find.
I guess as it's decayed, all the pipes that would have come off from that flue were probably all cracked or shattered away or just dropped out.
Yeah.
Over basically,
Yeah.
it's probably just all decayed, hasn't it? And
yeah. Well, I mean, who knows? Who knows what's still down there? But clearly, none of us will be going down there, so it doesn't matter. But that,
spiders.
No. Well, just wouldn't anyway. Oh. But that takes me on to another point of, I always assumed, because the workshop floor has gone, that the billiard room floor had gone. Well, I'm not completely convinced now. But then, because obviously the half is still intact. Obviously, there's a little bit of work to do just to see if I can locate floor or whatever. But when you're standing in the billiard room, it is quite level in a way, isn't it? Even though it's rubble filled.
Yeah, it's only missing on one side, the furthest north side,
which is the turning room.
Yeah, right to the very edge.
Yeah. But the floor in the turning room was substantially higher than where the half is in the billiard room. So the billiard room must have had a sunken floor. Yeah. It must have. Whereas the height of the floor in the turning room was so much higher. And the only reason I can guess for that is because he wanted the depth of the room in terms of the height to be that much greater, to give that sense of grandeur.
That's right.
Possibly.
Yeah, and if you look at the one photo of the billiard room, because it was a single story, but with a higher pitch roof with elevation, the floor as well. Yeah, it seemed like such a big room, but it necessarily in terms of width and breadth that great, but it just
wasn't the height of the ceiling. Yeah.
Just a really tall room. Loved the high ceilings of the Victorians. They absolutely loved it.
No, I know they did. I mean, it's grand, but so I'm reckoning, and at some perhaps under all that rubble, that's the doorway that leads off that hallway from a gentleman's entrance.
Yeah.
There must be some steps down into the billiard room. It's
so, yeah.
It's kind of revealing itself over this the course of this project that that we're into. It's all these little tantalizing clues are leading us to quite sort of, I don't know, conclusions which I guess are correct, because
well, we have the benefit of the day-to-day facts and little facts that are coming together. I mean, these are things that obviously history books point a different way forwards, kind of the details of the social history of the people, the times, the places, personalities, social history. But what we're finding kind of points to the day-to-day things, the little tiny details.
Well, it's about the house, really, isn't it? And the construction and,
the ergonomics of, how the place was put together, how it was run, and what eventually happened to it and how it was taken apart. So I think it'd be good when we can get together with others as well, and then put kind of both sides of history together.
Absolutely. It's a game of, like I said, it's a coming together of all these different species of knowledge from different people that create this whole big ether of knowledge. You know, it's sometimes hard for me to put into words, but I know.
Like a big jigsaw, isn't it? It's like a big jigsaw of different pieces that all fit together in different ways. Yeah, and I think, yeah, sometime in future we're going to have a far better idea between all of us about how
Yeah.
the whole place would have looked and worked and so on. And of course, there's always time for new things to come to light, new photos, records, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a wealth of knowledge that we've gained from actually being there down in the rubble and the dirt. And there's no better way in my opinion to actually learn about the house is to actually stand there in it and work in it and get to grips with it face to face. I think that's the only way that you can understand a place truly.
Yeah, we're pretty blessed to be able to do that and be able to, privileged to be able to do that too, because it's only once you're going to be able to do that. And,
Yeah.
it's that we're not going inside the house, but
No.
anybody else, but we can always, say that, well, yeah, we first-hand knowledge of that, obviously yourself, you got started and we followed on from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to tell, hence the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a point there where we stopped for the day and we continued to tidy up a little bit as well,
Yeah.
and just to really make sure that a lot of the stuff that's been a bit unsightly and has been in the way will be out, and taken off site. But it just does make the whole place look a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot more pleasing to the eye.
Definitely, because it's like bricks and stuff strewn down the side. Is just, and it's hard to avoid when you're doing the hard work. And yeah, to say to people, yeah, if you are wanting to volunteer, we only have like a very simple code of conduct, which we mentioned a few times before, but it's well worth restating it. Is that, yeah, if you are going to come and help us out, please just turn up. Bring yourself a pair of very sturdy gloves, like building gloves or thick gardener's gloves, and preferably get some protective footwear, like steel toe caps or something you can use.
Yeah.
Well, because as volunteers at the cooperative, you're entirely responsible for your own health and safety, although we're
Yeah.
trying to make it as safe as possible, because we don't obviously provide any insurance and so on. And of course, the other things, as we said all along, every fragment of history that we find from the house has to be safeguarded. We are custodians of that. A couple of us have taken on this at our own personal expense to make sure that everything that we find is preserved in either a time capsule in the house or to go to a future exhibition when it's needed or to be used for official purposes.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the house.
We're simply caretakers and custodians.
Yeah.
We encourage all of our volunteers never ever to take anything for personal gain or personal preference. This is not something we promote under any circumstances.
Certainly not.
No, then obviously that is upon your head. Remember the curse. But literally, Titus and Catherine are looking over us as well and saying, well, fine. The only reason we do take things which are fragments, there's nothing of value per se, is simply to preserve them. I know we spent an awful lot of time cleaning, washing,
Cataloguing.
photographing, everything. I'm running out of space. You probably are too. But yeah, we ask is if you volunteer that is just please respect this as well.
Yeah.
There's no room for people that just want to profit for personal gain
No.
or whatever they want and just take what they want, because that doesn't really help any of the cause.
Well, in all fairness, so the only things that they can really take is either a brick or some broken glass. Because let's face it, the things we found recently in the Orangerie are very, very rare. When I say rare, I mean it's not commonplace to find things there. The house was stripped. It was a bare shell before it was demolished. So I've never ever found anything apart from small pieces of glass that are completely intact anyway. So it's not about treasure hunting, because literally there is no treasure. It's, to me, treasure is parts of the house, which, be it a small fragment of glass, a piece of tile, even a brick, I dare say. they're the true treasures of the house, because they are the house. So
Absolutely. And
yeah.
and finally, just all we ask of volunteers is, turn up. You can do a variety of tasks. You can do like gardening, weeding, clearing, raking, kinds of things. But all we ask is that you contribute whilst you're there, and kind of just give as much as you can. Your hard work and time will be appreciated. And that's that really. And
nothing more to say really about that.
Just have a good laugh, and we have a lot of fun. We keep fit doing it as well. So that's that. What else was it we wanted to discuss as well? We talked about the Orangerie, and
we've done the Orangerie and potting shed, and obviously the clearing up. I don't really think there's anything else to talk about right now. I think we've
so we'll keep it fairly short for tonight, because obviously we're lacking Mr. Ace. He's probably gone to Saltaire Beer Festival, I believe. Lucky lad. So so hopefully we'll see him in the morning, although he might be a little bit worse for wear. But we'll be there tomorrow and Saturday, and hopefully Andy will be there to give people tours around as well. The rest of us will just crack on with what we're doing and the tidying up. So final shout out for the social medias on Twitter and Instagram, Milner Field History Podcast, and on Facebook, and on all the podcasting platforms. That's Amazon Music, iTunes, Spotify, Castbox, all the rest. Milner Field House History and Discovery Podcast. YouTube. This episode will go out on YouTube. It'll go out on BitChute and Odyssey and Library and Rumble and all the rest eventually. So I have time to do it, and it'll just be all over. So if you just get stuck, just go to Mr. Google or Mr. DuckDuckGo or whoever you use, and put Milner Field Podcast in, and it'll come up anyway, because we're busy bees, aren't we?
Yeah.
Right, and that's it. So for tonight, thank you for watching again, and hopefully we'll be back in a week or so with another update for you all. And for now, thank you. And take care for now.
Bye.
Boys and girls, you're off for now.